Anyone who commits to the life of an artist, it's a 24-hour commitment. Just it's a way of looking at life totally, and that's that would be my goal too. I'd like to just, it's almost like being a monk. You're being an art nun. I was first interested in art as a child, probably when I was about 5 or 6. And when I was 9, I started courses at the Carnegie Mellon Museum. They had Saturday morning children's classes. From there, I graduated to the Carnegie Mellon Institute, that's now a university program. In pre-college, I would say a pivotal experience was I attended the Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture one summer, where I had the opportunity to paint for 9 consecutive weeks with someone else taking care of my animal needs. And that was I think my painting underwent a very positive change at that point. And from there I went to Rhode Island School of Design. And it was, I think up until that point I had been very shy and kind of introverted, and at RISD I felt more confident, and I really branched out and became a lot more courageous and took a lot more risks, and felt really blossomed as personally. My inspiration comes from a variety of sources. Nature is always a huge inspiration to me. The effects of light are very inspirational, sometimes just on the simplest of objects. And I would say that the overriding feeling of my painting is one of saturated colors and a real concern with achieving an effect of light and a spirit of the place, if it's a landscape, or the spirit of a person, if it's a portrait. I would think an outsider looking at my art would see it was all over the place. It's not consistent to most people's mind. In my mind, it is very consistent because I'm very interested in a lot of different kinds of painting. And I get really bored when I feel like it becomes mechanical and I'm churning out the same painting. So it's my opportunity to explore and experiment. The portraits that I'm doing recently are mostly portraits of people who are willing to sit for me. Sometimes they do end up buying them, but I'm hoping to do about 100 of these portraits and at some point mount a show. They're all the same size, and it's very interesting when you see a volume of portraits done, different styles, but all the same size. Kind of inspired by the Vasari corridor in Florence. There's a long history of this type of portraiture that I'm kind of referencing. The underlying theme, and I guess the most important quality of these portraits, is they're all very fast. I tend to do them in under 2 hours in one sitting, and they have a freshness and an immediacy doing it that way. Whereas if I've done other portraits where I've spent several days or several sittings, and they lose that kind of really spontaneity that I love. And in the spontaneity, I think you find there's a freshness. The paint, it's very simple painting, and it's very immediate. They're all different. They're all based on what that moment is and what the sitter's saying to me. And it's just something where you feel like there's an expression or a look that you've captured that makes that feel like a very real thing. And I think that's at the point where the painting transcends the media and it becomes something of its own. It takes on a life of its own. When I come into the studio, I really think of it as a sanctuary. And I come in usually with a lot of ideas. I've made sketches or things I've seen even on the ride in from the North Shore. And once I close the door, I just try to allow myself complete creative freedom. I think the creative spirit it's not just about painting, it's about living, a way of living. And I'd like to give that to my kids. I'd like to just live as an artist. I think it's a different way of living. I don't close my studio door and go home and think my work is over. It's all part of it.
When I wept in front of a painting, and I knew that that's really what I wanted to do, and I wasn't doing it. I didn't have the confidence that I could paint, but I knew I had a very strong desire to do that. So I started looking at paintings, not in the emotional way, but in a very technical way. So I started looking at colors and shapes and analyzing it. And then I realized, I can do this. I can do it, and it's going to take a very long time. So I put myself on a 20-year plan. 10 years to learn technique, and 10 years where I would explore my own style and my own voice. And that's what I've been doing. I had 5 different careers before I finally listened to my calling and started painting in 1992 and realized I was in over my head and I should take drawing lessons. So I started going to continuing ed courses and started to learn how to draw, and then everything led from drawing into painting. I've passed the 10-year point, and I feel I'm closing in very much to the 20-year point where I have developed my own style and my own way of working through a painting and looking at things that is unique. I was very lucky to develop my technique with a teacher who does teach with brushes, but as an exercise to get us messy, put palette knives into our hands. And as soon as I picked it up and picked up the paint, I realized I know how to do this. And part of it came from my cooking with my mother and being in charge of frosting cakes, that I was very handy working frosting, and it's very much the same way. And so once I had that in my hand, it felt three-dimensional. I felt like I was working out of the plane of the picture, and it felt more real to me than a brush did. And the nice thing with using a palette knife is that I get the color I want, always. It's never contaminated by anything that's gone before it. If I have full control, I mix the color, it's on my palette, I can hold it up, look at it, get it on. It's there, and if it's not what I like, scrape it off, put it back down, make the adjustment, put it back up. It's there, I see it, I'm happy. I feel that I'm painting in the tradition of American realist. It's American, it's bold, it's big, and you want to look at it. And that's what I know I'm after. I'm after that real feeling of immediacy and intimacy and largesse. You know, America's a big country, all at the same time. And I don't know how I'll get there, but that's what I'm after. I find that there's a really interesting definition that happens between your eye and your hand, in your heart. And when you're drawing from life, something is revealed to you about what you find in that particular painting that spoke to you. So sometimes my work isn't totally realistic because I find that my eye and heart and hand bring me back to a particular bowl or a particular shape of cup, and that becomes the shape that's not real but idealized and believable and speaks to me. It was a little figure painting of a little girl that I saw just standing in front of a museum, shivering, and she was all bundled up. She had a scarf around her head and a polka-dotted vest. And I just loved the image. I fell in love with this image and grabbed my husband's cell phone and took a cell phone image to paint it back in my studio. Once an image is in my mind, it has to come out. There's no other room for any other image, which I find very interesting. There are times that I've been putting off painting a painting. I feel I'm not ready for it, or I'm busy with the show, and it will just creep up on me, and the next day I'll have to take something out and paint it. It becomes its own thing in my mind. Somebody saying, I want to take that painting home and see it every day on my wall because it makes me happy. That would be the ultimate compliment. I'm happy because I'm painting and I'm finally doing what I've always wanted to do. So many people who come in and see my work call it happy art, and I can't argue with them. It is happy art because I'm very happy making it. That's enough for me.
I was very young when I knew I had a strong interest in art. Elementary school, I was drawing and painting then, and I can remember doing sketches of the Beatles from Beatle albums I had for my friends. So I knew very early on that it would be something I would always be involved with and feel strongly about. I have really, truly accepted myself as someone who's so devoted to what I'm doing, and I'm a professional, and I do this now for a living. I left a part-time job a year ago to do this full-time, and all of my friends, my family, they know how important that this is to me, and that I take it very seriously, and it's who I am. It's my profession, and I don't need to justify it anymore. My work many years ago, I would say, was, I don't think I can ever think of my work as traditional, but I was painting more on plein air, painting on location, doing a lot of landscape painting. My work then was still colorful, sort of loose and expressive, but when I look back at my earlier work now, I feel like it looks tighter and much more representational, whereas now it's more interpretive and even more expressive, more abstract, which is what I'm going for. Working more from my feelings and my mind, not just something that I'm looking at. If I were to describe the type of art that I produce, I guess I would say that it's abstracted realism. I'm still kind of taken by the hook of reality, that I need to have something in my imagery that people can kind of hang their hats on. We all have our favorite artists. I would say that for me, any of the expressionist artists, abstract expressionists. I love the work of the Bay Area figurative painters whose work were also very loose, very expressive. I would say that I have a routine each day when I come to the studio. Before I can begin to paint, I have to come in and chill. I usually have a cup of coffee with me, whether it's coffee I made at home or coffee I picked up at Starbucks. I sit down on the little sofa that's in front of the windows, and it's always nice when it's a sunny day, and I'll look through books and magazines just to kind of get, you know, those artistic juices flowing, get inspired to begin. So I definitely have a routine. I I don't just walk in, throw my things down, and begin to paint. I sort of have to work up to that. And I often think about that. I often think about, you know, if someone were in here watching me, what they think about how I need to do these little things that I do before I can get into that zone of painting. And sometimes I think, you know, I'm wasting painting time sitting here and looking through magazines, but it's just what I need to do. It's like sort of this working up to getting to that moment where I just say, okay, I'm ready. I've thought of something that I'd like to paint on that particular day, or an idea that comes to me, and it's almost like then I charge at the materials, and I'm ready to go. There's this energy, and you know, nothing can stop me, and it's great when that happens. There are days that it doesn't happen so quickly, and I have to go with that, or maybe I just decide to take a walk. I started teaching in the studio as a means to an end. I thought if I could start teaching a workshop a month, then it would help me pay the rent. So that's really how it started. Not that I wasn't thinking I would enjoy teaching, because I knew that I would, but it turned into something much, much bigger than I ever thought. I started with a very small group of students and one workshop a month, and then it became a real business, and I'm teaching 2 workshops monthly, and classes are filling, and there's just such energy and excitement that surrounds the workshops, and I'm really loving it, and I feel that I'm good at it. And as I said, I never realized until I was doing it in the capacity that I am now how fulfilling it would be. I don't think that I have a goal for my work 5 years from now, 10 years, 2 years. I think that I really feel comfortable trusting the process and wherever that's going to take me. And I think we all, as artists, hope that our work evolves in a good way. But I feel very strongly about, again, trusting the process, really going with it. For me, that's a big part of what's so exciting about painting and being an artist in general.